Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to Season 2, Episode 42 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail throughout Week 8 and the rest of the 2022 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap. Nick, I probably should have said Week 7 since we still have one Week 7 game tonight. We will talk about it at the end of the show. We'll talk about our Monday Night Football projections. Not a lot to talk about considering it's the Bears and the Patriots. However, we'll talk about it. We have a lot of stuff to talk about from Week 7. We unfortunately have some pretty serious injuries. And then we have a whole recap for everything that happened this week. And I believe we still know nothing because the season's really wacky and weird. So what do you got?
I got exactly what you said. I was literally texting you and our brothers in the group chat earlier saying, like, this has been one of the wackiest weeks, like, seasons of football. Like, things do not make sense.
No, not at all. So we are going to talk about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We love doing these Monday shows, and we love doing all our shows, including those live shows on Sundays. So I do want to give a thank you to everybody that did listen this Sunday at 8:30 a.m. and joined and, ask a couple questions, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. We appreciate that. We do the live show every Sunday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Our YouTube and Facebook is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Our Twitter is PrimeTimeFFPod. We love answering your questions. We love when you interact with us. That's why we do the shows, to try to help you guys. So hopefully we helped out a lot of you guys, and hopefully you guys won your weeks. And if you're listening for the first time, after the live show, thank you so much. Hopefully you enjoy this show. And if it is your first time, we do this show on every audio streaming platform: iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere where you find a podcast, you'll find us, the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. If you'd rather watch and listen to the show, go to our YouTube channel, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, hit a like on this video, hit that subscribe button. We'd appreciate all of that. Keep interacting with us on social media, PrimeTimeFFPod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And then Facebook and YouTube is PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Let's get into the news. I don't know what I should start with here. There's a lot here. So I guess we can just go down the list. So starting off with Amon-Ra St. Brown, he left the game very early in the first quarter with a concussion injury. I believe he only had like 1.7 points or something like that. So it did seem like it could have been a pretty bad concussion. I don't know if he's going to play next week.
So it was, from what it sounded like from the commentary during the game, it was one of those, it wouldn't have been a concussion had that protocol not been cleared after the
okay. So he probably plays next week.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay. All right. We'll see how that goes. Obviously that sucks if you were playing Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it was a bad matchup. He would have had more than 1.7 points, obviously, but it wasn't a great matchup. So hopefully he's locked and loaded for next week. Chuba Hubbard injured his ankle in the fourth quarter, did not return. He did split carries with Dante Foreman. They both looked pretty good. Again, one to monitor. David Njoku was ruled out in the fourth quarter with an ankle injury. Don't have an update on that. Alan Lazard with a shoulder injury did not return. A lot of these you'll probably have a better update on when you actually listen to the show on Monday. We're recording Sunday night at 8 o'clock right before Monday Night Football. So we're just giving you all the information that we can. Daniel Bellinger with an eye injury was ruled out quickly and taken to the hospital. Do you have any information on that one? I was watching the Red Zone today, but I missed bits and pieces of it.
So I did see that he is going to a ophthalmologist back in New York. So I know they were in New York for the game, so I'm sure we'll get an update tomorrow. But eye injury, never good. And Giants down another pass catcher.
Yep. Ryan Tannehill with an ankle injury was seen in a walking boot after the game. Malik Willis did see some snaps after the injury, but Tannehill went back in. That's again one to monitor. Mike Williams left the fourth quarter against the Seahawks with an ankle injury. He was helped off with trainers. Doesn't look serious. Could be a high ankle sprain though. Again, you'll probably have better information than we do as we're recording. These are the two I kind of want to talk about. Let's start with the less serious one. DK Metcalf with a knee injury was carted off and ruled out very quickly. I still don't see. Oh, hold on. We have an update on David Njoku right now from Fantasy Life. David Njoku, who was in a walking boot and on crutches after today's game in Baltimore, suffered a sprained ankle that, in the words of one source, isn't serious. There'll be added tests to determine full extent of injury, but he will be okay. My guess is he does miss a week though. And then Njoku's been pretty solid for him. He's averaging like 6 or 7 receptions every week and like 50, 60 yards. He's been a good tight end. He could finish the season as a top 5 tight end points wise, I think.
So I'm not a doctor like Jerry Jones, but I am an sprained ankle expert.
He is, and Nick has probably at least 5 sprained ankles in his life, maybe more.
No. I have 17 sprains on my left ankle and none on my right ankle. Knock on wood. But in the history of my ankle sprains, in my history, you are only on crutches typically for a high ankle sprain, and it is typically a 3 to 6 week recovery. So if he's on crutches, that says to me he's going to miss at least the following week. And NFL trainers are better than the cast that you get left in when you're in high school. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
All right. DK Metcalf was carted off and ruled out very quickly with a knee injury. There's no update yet. Pete Carroll hasn't had his press conference yet. So somebody on Twitter said that he was smiling on the cart. So it leads me to believe it probably isn't serious. But if he was carted off, that leads me to think it was serious. I don't know. I wish I had an update for you, but we will talk about it. This one we can kind of talk about. Breece Hall was ruled out very quickly with a knee injury, I think, in the second quarter. Robert Saleh did say after the game, likely an ACL, and the initial diagnosis does not look good. I find it very rare when we get into a situation where a coach says initial diagnosis doesn't look good and we fear it's this and it's not. The only situation I can think of in recent memory was like 2 weeks ago when they feared that Marquise Brown had a serious foot injury, and it wasn't serious. He was out 6 weeks. With that said, my guess is Breece Hall is going to be out about a month. I'm no doctor, but whether it's serious I'm saying best case scenario, I should say. If we're in a Marquise Brown scenario where the worst fears isn't realized, I think he's out at least a month. But my guess is if they're assuming ACL, it's ACL is my guess.
My guess is he's done for the year.
Yeah, and that'd suck. That would really suck.
Next year.
That would really suck for a player that has looked phenomenal. Really, really phenomenal. With that said, though, Michael Carter is going to be the number 1 waiver ad this week. Probably only owned in like 25% of leagues at this point.
He's owned in 70%. I checked before we started recording. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
so we're not even going to be able to talk about him for waiver wire.
No. Well, that could be a league winner because you probably drafted him like round 10. So there you go. That one sucks. 2 more bits of news. Early this morning, reports of Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler trades started circulating. Teams are calling, and the Broncos are willing to take on offers for both. Jerry Jeudy did have the best game out of all the Broncos receivers today with Brett Rippey and a quarterback. I think he had like 15 fantasy points or something like that. He had a good game. And last bit of news, Nathaniel Hackett said that they are almost preparing for Russell Wilson to play next week, or initial reports that he can play. It seems like they're going to fly Russ out to London with a torn hamstring? What is it exactly?
It's a partially torn hamstring.
Partially torn hamstring. So Mr. Unlimited plans on playing next week in London. We'll see if that actually does happen. So any thoughts on those injuries for you, Nick? I know I talked a lot.
I can't talk about Breece Hall. I'm so sad about it. Like
Nick's in a new today.
I have my 5-2 Jets, and I am the most bummed out person on the planet as a 5-2 team. Where I don't think I've seen my team go 5-2 once in my life. I'm so devastated by the injury. Like I can't even talk about it. We got to move on.
Yep. My team's 4-3 and may have just lost DK Metcalf. So it sucks. It does suck.
You watched the Super Bowl. You want to know what I've watched?
I did.
I watched Mark Sanchez to Geno Smith sucking, to Ryan Fitzpatrick, to Sam Darnold, to with Tim Tebow sprinkled in between. Like,
oh, it sucks worse for you. I'm just saying it sucks. Like there's different.
At least you got a QB upgrade this offseason.
Oh yeah, baby. We got a big upgrade in Geno. We'll talk about it. All right. Let's go to the weekend wrap. Our biggest takeaways from every single game. So let's start off with the Atlanta Falcons versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Nick, I think you want to go first on this one.
Well, I got to go from Breece Hall to this. So,
yep.
I have made an executive decision as a founder, host, person for the Primetime FFPod. I refuse to talk Cincinnati Bengals for the rest of my career on this podcast.
I'm vetoing that. I veto it. I veto it. No. Hold on. You got to own this one because I owned the Jets one. Nick, can you describe what a Super Bowl hangover is?
Nope. I mean, it's the Atlanta Falcons. They're still hungover.
No. You want to
describe... fantasy, they're not. For fantasy, they're putting them.
But that was okay. Just to reiterate here, before the season, Nick said the Cincinnati Bengals as a whole, both in terms of fantasy and NFL, would have a Super Bowl hangover. They did start slow. With that said, now we don't have the numbers yet on ESPN because it is an update for a day, but Joe Burrow had, what was the number? He
was like
39 fantasy points, and he was the quarterback 1. I think he was the quarterback 5 before this week, so he's going to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback, I think, after this week. If you played a Bengal today, you probably had a really nice fantasy day because Jamar Chase had 33 points. Tyler Boyd had 29 points. How many did Higgins have? Higgins had 14 points on a bad day and missed his 100-yard bonus. Joe Mixon had 18 points. And then there's even Hayden Hurst had 10 points. He cracked double digits. The entire Bengals offense had a really great fantasy day. But the Falcons have shut down teams in the past. Like, it has to be noted. I don't care who it's against. They all had great fantasy days. That's the reality of it. And the Bengals have looked much better in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
They're not making the playoffs. You know what? I will talk Bengals. They're not making the playoffs.
They're not making the playoffs? They're not making the playoffs. You want to put a bet on that? Because the AFC sucks.
I have 2 bets on that already.
The AFC sucks. How are they not making the playoffs? What 9 teams are making the playoffs and the Bengals aren't?
Only 7 have to make it, not 9.
What 7 teams are making the playoffs and the Bengals aren't?
So the Ravens are going to win the division. Then they got to go get some of the wild card spots. I think the Chargers are a better team.
No, they're not. The Chargers are horrendous.
They didn't look like it today, but they're a better team. After this bye week, they're going to get better. The New York Jets are 5-2 with one of the easiest schedules the rest of the way. They have a shot at the playoffs. The only thing the Bengals have is they'll have the tiebreaker over them. Who else do we have? Miami. Miami, when they get healthy, is going to be much better.
The Bengals have the tiebreaker over them too.
New England has looked pretty good down the stretch. There's a lot of competition out there. It ain't an easy path.
You are talking out of your ass right now. You know the Bengals are making the playoffs in your heart. Look at that smile. You know the Bengals are making the playoffs.
I have 2 bets from before the season that they're not making the playoffs. I have no problem doubling down.
Let's double down then. What do you? Are you taking the entire field? Or are you taking
quick results on DK Metcalf? X-rays negative, MRI.
Okay, so it's probably a sprain then.
Yeah.
If X-rays are negative, it's not an ACL. They're not saying tear. It's probably a knee sprain or something. That's very good news for DK Metcalf owners and for my Seattle Seahawks.
Yes.
What do you want this Bengals bet to be?
You tell me, man.
Are you taking the entire field, or do you want to take a team?
No. I'm saying they're not making the playoffs. Period.
Okay.
It's either in or out.
I mean, I'll go in. I just want my one caveat to be that Joe Burrow has to be healthy.
No.
If Burrow misses time, yes, because that's the only thing that would stop them from missing the playoffs.
Tua missed time. If Tua jumps them, that's fair. Like, it is what it is.
Tua missed 2 games.
Mac Jones missed time. If Bailey Zappi and those Patriots take the spot, like that, no.
I will give you 2 games if he missed more than 2 games, the bet's vetoed.
Nah.
No. If he tears his ACL next week, they're not making the playoffs.
You gotta have confidence on that team.
I have confidence in the team as long as their quarterback's
You just talked about
healthy.
how electric that offense is and how great the defense is. So we've talked about how great the defense was all year. So.
If Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL if Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL next week, I would take the Chiefs not making the playoffs.
But that's different.
No, it's not. How is it different?
The Bengals aren't as Joe Burrow reliant as the Kansas City Chiefs are Patrick Mahomes reliant. You know that's true.
No, I disagree. They need Joe Burrow to play well to win games. All right, we're going to move on from this because I'm not making a bet knowing that there's a chance that he tears his ACL. Just saying. Anyway, Nick is still going to be anti-Bengals. He's going to die on that hill for some reason. I don't know what's going to make Nick not die on that hill. But if I got to keep talking about it every week as I play well, I will. I don't want to. But the thing is, when Breece Hall proved me wrong, I admitted it and I put him on my boom team every week.
I admitted Jamar Chase proved me wrong.
What about Burrow? What about that entire team? I admitted
off air that Joe Burrow proved me wrong.
All right, well now it's on air. You didn't get to make a point about this game. So is there a point you want to make? What was your biggest takeaway from this game? Maybe it's from the Falcons side.
No, I got nothing.
Okay.
I didn't learn anything about the Atlanta Falcons. They're still the Falcons. They still can't get the ball down the field. And the Bengals are the most hit or miss team on a week-to-week basis in the NFL.
Well, that's not true. There are definitely more hit or miss teams.
Like who?
The Packers.
No, the Packers are just miss.
The Bucks.
Okay, the Bucks are up there with them.
The Ravens. The Ravens didn't look good today.
The Ravens haven't looked good all year. They're getting a little.
They look good against Buffalo. They're hit or miss.
All right, whatever. They're one of those hit or miss. They're in the top tier of
the entire league is hit or miss besides like 3 teams. I think that's a fact.
Yeah,
Seattle's a hit or miss team.
The Jets aren't hit or miss. The Jets are hit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then see what happens when they run into the Chiefs, and then we'll see if they're hit.
I
All right.
don't know.
Lions at the Cowboys. What's your biggest takeaway? Because I just spoke a
lot. So what I saw in this game, and I mean, I was calling it before the game. I was high on it. Like I was high on the Cowboys. I don't think Dak's 100%. So I've been saying I think that the coaching staff, Jerry Jones, have been protecting him through that Eagles week. That might be true. That might not be true. But I don't think he's fully 100% yet. I didn't see the passing ability that I saw all of last year. It was a susceptible defense, but they did come off of the bye week for the Lions. So maybe there's a little bit of that factor, but the Cowboys defense is electric. We already knew that. They're going to carry teams. They're going to be a great play pretty much every single week for the rest of the year. I think they're a must roster. The teams that they play on the rest of the year, let me pull them up because I was looking through the schedule and this is like ridiculously easy, just like the Eagles. So they get Chicago next week. They go on bye. After the bye, they go to Green Bay, and Green Bay doesn't look good. At Minnesota, not great. New York Giants, the offense is not good, so I would consider playing them there. Then they have Indy, Houston, Jacksonville, like all easy matchups. The one tough matchup is week 2 of your playoffs then, which will be Philadelphia, and then championship week is at Tennessee. Like you can genuinely start the Cowboys defense in all but 2 games through your championship week and not have a problem. There's a very good shot they're going to be dropped going into that bye week. So I will bring them up as the number 1 waiver wire next week. But like they looked a lot better. They were able to score more, but I don't think Dak is fully there yet. So those receiving options looked better, but they're going to continue to look better as the weeks go on.
I agree. And Schultz looked playable this week for the first time in a couple weeks. Both running backs had a role. Most of the offense looked much better. My big takeaway is what I said before the week. Don't play Jared Goff against bad defenses. Good defenses. I'm sorry about that. I think he had 2 fumbles. He definitely had 2 picks and no touchdowns. Jamal Williams had a decent fantasy day, but aside from that, this is not a good game for the Lions. The Lions are playing well. They're turning into a better team, but they don't have the quarterback, and they're only going to compete so much with Jared Goff against the top tier of the league. So that's my big takeaway. Indianapolis Colts versus those Tennessee Titans. What is your big takeaway?
My biggest takeaway is like I didn't learn anything from this game. They're both the same exact teams I thought they were going into it. They're both the same exact teams coming out of it. Titans, once again, they're just going to run Derrick Henry through like until the world ends. I had Robert Woods on my old bus team. I thought the pre-bye week stuff was a fluke, and guess what? He came out and he put up, I think, 4 fantasy points, right? Like, you're still not trusting him. There's a very good argument that he belongs on the waiver wire. I completely buy into that. And then on the Colts side of the ball, it's the same thing. We knew Taylor would be good. He wasn't great in this matchup, but he was a lot better than he's been in earlier weeks. And those receivers, it's always going to be a question mark. You know, me and Nick liked Alec Pierce, and then all of a sudden Paris Campbell plays well. Like, we loved Michael Pittman going into the year. Michael Pittman winded up having, I think, the second or third most targets on the team, like with Jonathan Taylor in front of him. Like, so there's just such a mess. Such a mess. This is one of those teams where I'm like,
the Colts are frustrating.
This makes no sense.
They're frustrating. My big takeaway is I'm sorry for telling you guys to play Matt Ryan. I played him in a league, and I probably will win, maybe win. I don't know. I had to play him because Hurts was out. Did not play well today. Played pretty horrendously. So I'm sorry, guys. That was a wrong on my part. But Jonathan Taylor, man, my big takeaway is 7 receptions on 8 targets. I don't know if we see that continue. I hope we do, because he should be used as a 3-down back. So that's a huge takeaway. If so, he could end up playing like the back you think that you drafted in the first round. If so. The Green Bay Packers versus the Washington Commanders in just another weird game. The Packers are bad. Like, I'm done with this. Like the Packers are bad. They're a bad football team. I think we just need to call it like it is after 6 weeks. The Packers are a bad football team. The Bucks are not a good football team. The Rams don't look like a good football team. Like the Chargers don't look like a good football team either. I think we got to call it like it is after 6 weeks. I mean, I don't know how many weeks or how many chances we're going to give a team. But let's just talk about the Packers themselves. They've dropped 3 in a row now, 4. What are they at? I think it's 3, right?
I know it's 3. I don't know if it's 4 because they lost both the New York games and then
they lost the Commanders game. Like, they are not a good football team. My other takeaway from that is Romeo Doubs is probably droppable because I don't know if Rodgers is ever going to pass to him again. And Gibson looked like the better back, even though Robinson outsnapped and outtouched him. What that leads me to believe is that Ron Rivera just doesn't like Antonio Gibson for some reason. He sees something that he doesn't like, whether it's his personality, his play style, whatever, but his stats are better. His yards per carry were better. Just saying, if you don't want to use Gibson, trade him somewhere else. He's talented. The talent's there. Just saying, Ron.
I've been on the Antonio Gibson train for a while, and I want him to leave the station. And when I mean leave the station, means go like Rams, go make a trade offer for him. Ron Rivera does not value him as much as I think at least 80% of the other NFL teams would value him. My big takeaway is the Packers do have a much better defense than people think. And Taylor Heineke looked a lot more comfortable than he should have in that offense. I was thinking about this, and the exact offense he rolled out there with was the same exact offense he saw last year. Logan Thomas was out with injury, Jahan Dotson out with injury. Those are the 2 guys that were not on the team last year. Brian Robinson's obviously the new running back, but Antonio Gibson got work in the passing game. Terry McLaurin looked very good. Curtis Samuel, who we had last year, looked very good. There's a rapport and a chemistry that he has with these guys. And the tempo that they had, the announcers kept saying it, he has a very good connection with these receivers on those 10, 15-yard routes where he's in perfect timing. He, every catch was in stride, every curl route, every turnaround, it was right where the receiver wanted the ball. I think he has a better comfort and understanding in the offense than Carson Wentz. So when Wentz comes back, that tempo is going to get disrupted again. But as long as Heineke's here, and he's only going to be here for another 2 or 3 weeks, unless if he keeps putting together a string of wins, I don't think the players are going to get as much of a downgrade as I thought initially. I think I was wrong on that. Curtis Samuel had a very solid day. He finished with 13 fantasy points. McLaurin, who neither of us really liked on the week, finished with 18. So
yep, I was wrong on that. I think my entire all bust team was probably wrong.
But yeah,
I was really good. It was really good last week. I'll pat myself on the back for that. I'm looking at it right now. I was right about Cortland Sutton and Drake London, so that's something, I guess.
That was because of saucy clamps right there, though.
Yeah.
Got lost in the sauce on that last play.
My boom team, Higgins didn't have a bad game. CD didn't have a bad game. And boom, Amari Cooper didn't have a bad game. Evan Ingram didn't have a bad game. This is the all average team. They all hit the projections. This is the my all boom team was my all projection team last week. Now, with that said, we're going to talk about some running backs later on that me and Nick both were in love with, and they all boomed. We should have just made one team this week because we were completely right. But anyway, Tampa Bay Bucks at the Carolina Panthers. My first note here is in all caps: the Bucks suck. We're at 7 weeks now. They don't look good. They don't look good against anybody. I can't even tell you what the problem is. Maybe it's because Bruce Arians left. I think that's
what I think it is.
I think I'm starting to believe in that one because the line is bad, but and Mike Evans should have had that touchdown at the beginning. That was really bad, but still,
you don't see Evans do that. That's a one-off, but still.
Something's funky over there. And I could see reports coming out at the end of the season about stuff going on. It's just one of those things we won't know for a while. But anyway, my fantasy takeaway is that Rachaad White was more effective, 6 carries for 24 yards. Leonard Fournette was 8 for 19. I don't see Leonard Fournette losing the starting role, but Rachaad White is one to just keep your eye on, is what I'll say.
I agree with you on that. I'm more on the Carolina Panthers side of the ball. I want to say I was right, but I wasn't right because last week I said DJ Moore would be good. I said that Panthers offense would look better.
You get a participation trophy for this take. It's like you didn't win a gold medal, but you competed. It's like you win the NBA finals and you didn't play a minute in the entire playoffs, but you're still getting getting a ring. You're still wearing a ring. You still tell your kids that you won an NBA finals, but your stat line is the same as me sitting on the couch.
Exactly. Like, I said the Panthers would be better, and then they all sucked last week. And I said, all right, well, now they're going up against the best defense in football, at least like per fantasy. And every single Panther that would have been fantasy relevant, boom, both running backs, boom, DJ Moore, best week of the year. Tommy Tremble caught a touchdown. PJ Walker looked like a value fantasy player in Superflex leagues. Like, what? What? Like, why did this have to happen? This is another example of why me and Nick are frustrated and say the fantasy season makes no sense. You see, Tampa Bay has allowed the least amount of points to running backs, and then they allow 2 backups, not even Christian McCaffrey, to go for 15 points plus each. If Chuba Hubbard's out for a while, we're all going to be on the Devontae Foreman train. And guess what? He's probably going to suck next week because he was a 3rd-string running back anyway. Like, makes no sense this fantasy season, and I'm really annoyed about it. I'm going to finish my week 4-1 with a Jets win, and I'm going to be the most miserable person with that.
All right. All right. The New York Jets versus the New York Giants versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
No, go for it. Was
James Robinson injured? This is a legitimate question because I was watching on and off on the red zone.
I know at one point he had negative fantasy points, and then he was back at 0. How it happened, I don't know, because I didn't see him get a touch. I did see he got a target. But
he got a target. So the reason why I asked, because I was out today. I was watching the red zone. And I was home for the later games, but I did watch the red zone. So I did see a good amount of stuff. But when I was doing my notes for the show, I saw that James Robinson did not have 1 carry. Like, he did not line up in the backfield and get the ball once. My guy, Travis Etienne, though, 114 yards, a touchdown, and 5 targets. I think the backfield has shifted. I've been saying it in the past 2 or 3 weeks, and I think your window to trade for Travis Etienne might be over. I think his value is a bit higher. And if you're a Travis Etienne owner like me and you still want to unload him, first off, I'm now a little bit more reluctant to unload him unless I'm getting a star running back by upgrading a 2-for-1. But if you're looking to trade for him, the price has just gotten higher because I think he's only going to go up from here. Also, I was wrong about Christian Kirk. I busted him this week, 7 for 96. Wrong. Bad take by me. My teams were not great this week. So there we go. Credit to me. I was right. Oh, hold on. I was sorry about that. I was right on Evan Ingram. He had double-digit fantasy points again. So he didn't boom per se, but hey, I'm picking a player from the waiver wire and he scored double-digit fantasy points. So good job, Nick. Good job.
I don't want to counter on the ETN point. I mean, I watched the whole game. I didn't think ETN matched his stat line. He had 1 major run, which made up the majority of his numbers. Most of the other rushes came near the end of the game when they were up by 8 possession. And then the Giants took the lead, and then they were playing from behind, down 6 on the final drive, so he didn't get the workload there. Like, I didn't see ETN, like, really have a good game. In my eyes, what I saw
He did get the goal line work, though.
He did get the goal line. He got the better work. Like, I think ETN's going to be good, but I'm still a little concerned. I'm not fully sold on ETN because I saw what other people saw in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which is where he put up the numbers, but it was like on crazy efficiency, which shouldn't happen. But it was only a couple plays that really did it, right? Like, it was the touchdown that really put him over the top. He hit the 100 yards because he had a big rush early on in the game. And outside of that, he was an average NFL running back. Like, he didn't really do anything crazy. I know it's a good matchup. Like, I had him on my all-bust team, and he had a fine fantasy day. But I didn't think watching the game like Travis Etienne was better than the James Robinson I saw last year. So I'm not fully on the train. I'm definitely leaning more on the Etienne side, but I'm not sold on buying him at where I think his value is going to be after this week. Like you said, I think his value is very high right now. I think he should be a little bit lower value where he might be at that higher value right now.
I think it's totally fair, but I don't think Dalvin Cook has done much more than ETN this year, honestly. And that's just one example of a guy you drafted in round 1. I mean, last week, if Dalvin Cook doesn't have that 50-yard run at the end, he has like 4 fantasy points.
Fair enough.
I'm just making a point. I don't think there's many I don't think there's many sure running backs out there to where you're describing a for sure running back that look like they dominate the game. I think there's Derrick Henry, there's Christian McCaffrey, there's Jonathan Taylor on a good day. Josh Jacobs looks great right now. So maybe Jacobs, but like that's it. There's not many running backs to me that's like they are 100% a sure thing. They look good every week. I think if you're going to have a great game, you probably need a long run and a touchdown. Kenneth Walker, same thing. He looked good, but that long run put him over the top. So I think that's one thing to note. All right. Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. The Browns aren't a bad football team. Do want to state that. What is your biggest takeaway? There's a good amount of fantasy nuggets to this one.
So let me pull up Lamar Jackson's stats. I think he's getting way too much hype. He is the QB2 on the season prior to this week. And
so he's going to drop. He's going to drop to QB5 probably is my guess.
So he finished with 10.7 points. But do you remember how I was telling you earlier for the all bust and on the live, like why Tom Brady is like higher than he actually should be, and same thing with TJ Hawkinson, like their average is way above
because the one big game.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Lamar has done. Lamar's first 3 weeks in fantasy have been phenomenal. Since then, he's been pretty mediocre as a fantasy player. First 3 weeks, 20, 43, and 40. Since then, 13, 14, 16, 10. That is not startable for fantasy. That 16 week against the Giants, that's the same stat line Tom Brady put up, not this week, but in the prior weeks where it was like, all right, well, he didn't finish in the top 10. So, like, he hasn't produced a monster fantasy week since. In the first 3 weeks of the season, he put up 12 touchdowns and only 2 turnovers. Since then, he's put up 3 touchdowns and 4 turnovers. Like, he's not doing that great. And now he plays Tampa, which is an impossible defense to read because of what we saw this week. Then he goes at New Orleans, who once again looked like they had a great defense and just allowed, Arizona to walk all over them the week prior, the Bengals to walk all over them. Like, I don't know what to make on Lamar. I think he's a sell high candidate. Like, I know he's coming off the bad week, but there are going to be people that need quarterback positions. Like those guys that had Russell, Matthew Stafford, like all these other waiver guys have been so inconsistent where I would go sell high on Lamar if you could.
I got to read a tweet off because this is pretty important, I think. Chiefs wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster says that playing Call of Duty Warzone with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Marquise Valdes-Scantling on Friday, they won 3 games in a row. He says that's what the difference was in their chemistry today. So I give Kyler Murray.
Go get Nuke on there.
Yeah, I now give Kyler Murray. Now if I'm a Cardinals beat reporter, if you go out there and you ask Kyler about Call of Duty, like I'll laugh pretty hard if that happens. Maybe that's what they got to do. That I had to read that out. That was fun. My big takeaway is 2 things. The Ravens backfield looked messy, as we expected. Edwards was the lead back. He had the touchdown, but I think he had like 16 carries, and one of the other, I think it was Drake had 10, and Justice Hill had 6. My other big takeaway is I don't think Kareem Hunt is playable most weeks. He's just not used enough. I know he had the touchdown today, but aside from that, like Nick Chubb is an alpha over there. This isn't a 1A, 1B. This is Nick Chubb's backfield. He's 100 yards and a touchdown every single week. Like that's just what he is. And he's not going anywhere. So unless Nick Chubb gets hurt, Kareem Hunt to me shouldn't be in your starting lineup because it's probably a starter out there that you could play. If you're in a 10-man league, like I hope you have 2 starters on your team that's not Kareem Hunt. And if you don't, that kind of sucks. But to me, the split isn't there. I think I'd rather play Antonio Gibson than Kareem Hunt every week, knowing that he's still the backup, but I think he's going to eat into the carries more. I think I'd rather play one of the Panthers running backs. I just don't think Kareem Hunt's very playable right now, knowing that Chubb is just on this ridiculous season. He's probably going to have like 1,600 yards and 20 touchdowns or something like that. Moving on to the 4:00 games. The Jets versus the Broncos. The Jets won. Jet up, baby. Those Broncos, they're terrible. They're really bad. What is your big takeaway about this one?
So we all know the Brees news now, and my takeaway is not by no surprise. Michael Carter is going to be a must-start and a league winner on the rest of the year. Mike LaFleur said before the season that Carter is the heartbeat of the offense. I think he truly meant the run game is the heart of the offense. After Brees Hall went down, Michael Carter saw a large majority and a large chunk of the workload. They did not abandon the run against a very good run defense. And Denver was a very good run defense against Hall, too, up until the injury. Hall had one monster run, which gave him a viable fantasy day in the week where he got hurt. But outside of that, like Denver's defense is elite, which brings me to my second point, which is both these defenses are elite. Both these defenses are shut down, and you're going to be able to play them more weeks than not. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of these defenses. The Jets defense is rosterable in the majority of leagues. They have I think they rank top 5 in forced fumbles and top 5 in interceptions on the year. So I think they just had a monster sack game either this week or one of the prior weeks. Their pass rush is good. They're stopping the run. They're stopping the pass. The only bad games where they had or as a defense were the first 3 games of the year, and they were a very young team, pretty much an entirely new secondary, and almost an entire rehauled defense. So now they got chemistry together, and they are shutting teams down. They shut Aaron Rodgers down last week. I know it's Brett Ripien and Nathaniel Hackett, who will probably be fired before the bye week. But both these defenses are going to be startable more weeks than not. I think the Jets have potential to be a league winner there.
They have a good schedule too. My big take was that Judy was the favorite in a very messy wide receiver and running back room. Cortland Sutton, and I don't know, it could have been Sauce Gardner that really locked him up, but Jerry Judy's numbers were great. I'm going to pull them up right now. Judy was 7 for 96 without a touchdown, so that's 16 fantasy points right there. Almost had that 100-yard bonus. So got to see what happens next week in Jacksonville. Much easier matchup for Sutton, but if this trend continues with that, and Russell Wilson could play, so that's another thing. He's not out technically. Got to see what happens with that, but nice resurgence for Judy. As for the running backs, Nathaniel Hackett, you suck, dude. Just it's miserable watching you coach. It's miserable having your players on my fantasy team. You are almost as bad as Matt Nagy last year. Maybe worse because you had the talent on your team. I can't stand Hackett. Houston Texans versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay. Me and Nick both wanted both of these running backs on our all boom team last week. I gave Nick got him first, so Nick got.
I didn't have Pierce on my team. I don't want to hear that one.
You didn't? Been there. I'm getting confused. I don't know. Maybe I didn't.
I had Kenneth Walker.
You're right.
Josh Jacobs.
You're right.
Ezekiel Elliott.
You're right. We wanted all 3 of them. You're right. So how about you talk about running back? I talk about the other because we both love both these running backs. They both had good games. So yeah, you take your pick first.
Sure. I was right about Josh Jacobs for the week. I was wrong about him for the season. I said he would finish as a low-end RB1. I was wrong. He's going to finish as a high-end RB1. Josh McDaniels knows how to use his running backs. Josh Jacobs has been absolutely electric. We knew it was a good matchup against the Texans. And once again, 20-carry game, 3rd in a row. Used in the passing game, 3 catches, 3 touchdowns, 143 yards. Monster stat line. If you watched any of those Josh Jacobs run, you saw why he was so good and why he should have been a lot better. It was the worst scheme 2 years ago early last year with what's his face, John Gruden, or 2 years ago. They would literally run Josh Jacobs on the first, as a 3-down back on the first drive of the game, second drive, and they pulled him for Devontae Booker, and it took so much of his workload and his production away. He is right now a true 3-down workhorse, and he is taking every single advantage of it. In his division, Broncos are good against defense. Chargers, one of the worst in the league. You just watched them allow the monster game to Kenneth Walker, and Kansas City, who is absolutely horrendous to running backs as well. Josh Jacobs, rest of season, monster schedule, probably going to finish in the top 3 running backs on the year. And I hope you were able to get him because he fell down the board in a lot of leagues. He is someone that should not have been missed on.
Just to back that up, Josh Jacobs has his first 2 seasons are over 1,000 yards, and last year he was at 872, and I think he missed 3 or 4 games. I want to say his average yards is always over 4. This year is his best average at 5.7. Most touchdowns he's had in his career is 12. He already has 6. And he had 54 receptions last year. He's already at 20. So, and he's already at 650 yards, by the way. So, great year so far. They should keep pounding the rock with him. I have Dameon Pierce here. 20 touches, close to 100 yards. And Lovie Smith just said that he needs to get more than 20 touches. So he should have gotten a couple more. And 4 catches and 4 targets. Another solid game. Really bad game script. I know the Raiders ran away with it towards the end. And they put in the other running back, not Burkett. They have another one that they put in there. But yeah, you're reaping the reward of Dameon Pierce. He's not going anywhere. I think he's another one that's just locked and loaded to have a really spectacular rest of the season. So that's my big takeaway. So Kansas City Chiefs at the San Francisco 49ers. I want to take this one first. I was wrong. I busted Patrick Mahomes because he was facing the 49ers defense. And what I said was he would probably end up at 17 fantasy points. He ended up at 26. So he didn't crap on my face totally, but I was wrong still. He did look great out there. And it's funny because like at the beginning of the game, I think he had a pick and the first touchdown was a rushing touchdown. So I said to myself, I'm going to be right about this one. Can't wait. And then ended up with like 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. The 49ers left they were home. They just didn't play defense. They literally just did not play defense. So yeah, that's my Patrick Mahomes take. Aside from that, George Kittle was like the only tight end that celebrated National Tight End Day. He had 8 for 98, didn't get the 100-yard bonus, and 1. There were like 4 players that didn't get the 100-yard bonus today. It was Kittle, Kelsey,
Mike Evans,
Higgins, Mike Evans. Like, come on, guys, we want the bonus. What is your biggest takeaway? Dameon Pierce. Like, there's a lot of really close ones. What's your biggest takeaway?
So Nick admitted he was wrong on Mahomes. I'm gonna admit I was wrong on Juju. I might not be wrong on Juju. I might be proven like kind of right because Patrick Mahomes did tell you before the year like he's gonna rotate the receiver, and I do believe him. But this is now back-to-back games where Juju has been an absolute monster. So maybe he is finding another level of chemistry like Kelsey had or like Tyreek Hill had that the other guys don't have. And I'm annoyed because I traded him away for freaking Michael Thomas, who hasn't played a game since I traded for him. So, but I think he's going to be locked and loaded regardless of matchup. This is 2 bad matchups. Buffalo and San Fran were in back-to-back. He showed up huge for fantasy. So I think he's going to be locked and loaded rest of the year.
More guys that are locked and loaded. Let's go to the Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Chargers. Me and Nick are both really high on Kenneth Walker, so I'm going to let Nick talk about Kenneth Walker, so I won't speak about that.
No, you could go Kenneth Walker. There's another one I want to talk about.
Okay. I wasn't prepared to talk about Kenneth Walker, so let me just pull up the stats because he not only did he look great, but the stats reveal that he looked great, and he doesn't fumble as far as I know. He's not really a fumbling machine. He did have a long of 74 on that last garbage time touchdown, so just taking that away, he still had like 85 yards, a touchdown. Does not get receptions, so that's a little concerning. But aside from that, he's a back that Pete Carroll likes. Drafted him early, and that's all I got. Like, if you have Kenneth Walker, like, you got to steal if you held on to him or if you picked him up off the waiver wire. My other takeaway is that if DK is out for a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year, Tyler Lockett gets a boost. He had 7 receptions and 45 yards. So the yards weren't great, but still 11 fantasy points on 8 targets. And Marquise Goodwin becomes a waiver guy. 4 receptions on 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. He looked good. He had a nice toe tap in the end zone. He looked good. So if DK's out, Goodwin's a waiver guy to watch.
So I think the Chargers, more than any team in this league, need the bye week, which is coming next week. They are probably the most talented team in the league that is playing awful. And that includes the Denver Broncos, who have so much talent on the outside and are playing awful. The Chargers have now blown massive, like, big games and have played close games with teams they should have blown out of the water. They got smoked by Jacksonville. They kept it close with Vegas. They were close with Houston, close with Cleveland. And they, I don't remember, they might have lost one of those two. And they lost to Seattle now. Like, I said that they were my almost upset of the week. I didn't think they were going to get blown out of the water like this.
The spread was like 6.5. It was a big spread.
Yeah. And like they got demolished. The Chargers look horrendous. And Eckler looks good for fantasy, but it's because the Chargers look so bad as an offense.
He's also averaging like 10 targets a game.
He had 12 catches today.
Yeah.
Like, you want to know why he had 12 catches? Because that offensive line couldn't hold up enough against Seattle's pass rush. Eckler has 4 games in a row with a touchdown, at least 2 touchdowns and another one. Well, actually, he has 8 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks, including the passing ones. He had his last 4 games, 35, 36, 25, and 37. And most of that production is coming because he's getting so much work in the passing game because Herbert doesn't have time to throw. His wide receivers are so dinged up and can't create separation. Keenan Allen should not have been out on that football field today. He looked terrible. He looked awful. Week 1, Keenan Allen looked fine. So you can't tell me it's not the hamstring injury, right? Like, that's all it is. Mike Williams got hurt near the end of the game and had to exit. Josh Palmer has the concussion and is missing. Like, no team needs it more than them. And then they get the sweet revenge game at Atlanta off the bye. And then the rest of the schedule is tough. They don't have an easy out for the rest of the season. And if you thought they did, well, guess who kept it close? Seattle, who does not have one of the best rosters in the league. Houston, Cleveland without their starting quarterback, and Jacksonville. So these Chargers, probably one of the more frustrating teams in the league, like from a football perspective, from a fantasy perspective. There are guys that are putting up numbers, but they should be going way through the roof. Austin Eckler's only being productive because of a bad offense and a bad offensive line. It's just massive workload because no one else can deliver. Like, this team needs to buy to reassess, or Brandon Staley needs to get fired because this is another abysmal showing in a game.
The other issue is this team is always injured for some reason. I can't tell you why, but it's every year it's the Chargers. Mm-hmm. So there you go. They need to buy every month. Yeah. Going to go to our Monday Night Football preview. This should be a short one, knowing the teams. But anyway, we're still going to give you a preview projections. I feel like it's going to be a lot of unders. Right now, it looks like Mac Jones is going to start, so we're going with Mac Jones, 13.8 fantasy points. What do you think?
I'm going to go with the over here. I don't think the Bears have a better defense than most people think, but Bill Belichick knows how to move the ball efficiently. Rookie head coaches struggle against him on offense and on defense, so I do think that they're not going to have a problem. I think he could have the chance for multiple touchdowns in this game.
Yeah, I agree. We'll also hit the over with that. What about Justin Fields, 13.3? I think he's one guy I'm just always going to hit the under over.
Yeah, it's so low, but like they're not passing enough. They're going to try and pound the rock. Like, I can't see them moving the ball at all. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears put up less than 150 yards in total in this game. Like, I think they're going to get slaughtered.
Ramondre Stevenson, 13.9.
I'm going to go with over, but Harris being back does make me question the ceiling on it.
Harris being back makes me say under unless he scores a touchdown. Okay. David Montgomery, 13.8.
Under as well. The Patriots are very good against the running back position.
Yep. Damian Harris, 12.2. Same thing for me as Stevenson. Whoever scores a touchdown hits their over. Whoever doesn't gets the under. That's just how I'm viewing it. I wish I could project who's going to score the touchdown, but I can't. Like, with this team, it's impossible. You should flip a coin if you have both.
I'm going with the under as well.
What about Khalil Herbert, 6.7? To me, it's an under unless David Montgomery gets hurt.
I think that's more than fair. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Jacoby Myers, 12.1. I actually like the over here if Mac Jones is going over. I think that's who he passes to.
I'm going to go with the under here. Belichick does not let a receiver have 3 good games in a row. So one of those other guys is going to have the good game. Myers could have it, but I just don't. He doesn't tend to abuse a receiver. It was only Brady that abused Gronk, Welker, and Edelman, and none of these other guys are that.
What about Darnell Mooney, 11.1? I say under because of Bill Belichick.
I think it's closer to 6.
Hunter Henry at 5.6 and Cole Kmet at 6.4. I'm slopping them in together because both are unders for me.
Henry over, Kmet under.
Okay. Alrighty, guys. That is our Monday show. Thank you so much for listening. This was fun. I love talking about the NFL weekend, especially after a really fun NFL Sunday. If you enjoyed this episode and you're a first-time listener or not a first-time listener, thank you so much. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review. It is appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, share the channel with your friends. We'd appreciate that. Let us know how much you enjoy the show on social media or any ways that we can improve it. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, PrimeTimeFFPod, Facebook and YouTube, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Enjoy Monday Night Football tonight. It's not the best game, but you know what? It's football. So enjoy it and enjoy the rest of Week 7.